Okay, once again, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining the session today. As you guys saw as you guys saw in the training schedule, we are going to be focused on machine learning, ops, best practices in a range of different approaches and technologies that can be used to address and to tackle this subject where related to machine learning that is so important to make sure your customers are able to move from manual deployments to something that is repeatable and automated and provides the best experience for users consuming your trained models. So during this session, I wanted to provide I wanted to discuss with you a few things related to the traditional and regular automated machine learning workflow. So the purpose is only to move from this standard of picking up the data, processing the data, training our model, and then deploy our model to something more advanced and sophisticated by using uh, some frameworks, some platforms to automate the entire experience. So you guys got to think about things like how can I provide infrastructure as a code for this pipeline, how to implement configuration as a code, and we are going to be talking about that for sure. The pipeline as a code as well. This is something that we're going to be covering during the SageMaker pipelines, or even speaking about the step functions, how to turn that into something reusable and automated. On top of that, how you're supposed to implement automated quality gates. So during my lab, we're going to be using with XGBoost for a linear regression training model, where you're going to be using the RMSE, that is stands for the root mean square error, to determine if a training model, when compared to the test model, should be moving into production by using this metric. So how we are supposed to automate this quality gates? This is just one example here. And on top of that, we should be able to provide an automated way for you to, for users, for data science, for developers to approve or not, to either to whether approve or not a model that was published and was just trained. And we should have the capability to detect model drift and then retrain our model without any manual intervention or any hands off for during my process. And how we are supposed to do that? How can we achieve that? So the purpose is to achieve the golden pipeline. Of course, there is not a silver bullet, and the answer relies on the customer needs, but we can try to determine the best implementation possible based on our experience by using existing frameworks and best practice, right? So just so we know, we provide out of the box an AWS MLOps framework that consists of multiple artifacts, including the pipeline, things like code commit, code pipeline, code build, and also code deploy to automate the entire machine learning process and then publish those trained models into multi-account environment. And that could be like a quick start for customers to move from the manual process for training and build the model and deploy it into production to something more sophisticated and implementing these automated steps as I just mentioned. So when it comes to automating your SageMaker workflows, you gotta remember that in a nutshell, what you have is building algorithms. Sometimes we are leveraging built-in frameworks. So we are working with uh, TensorFlow or PyTorch or MXNet, and usually we need to provide the training code. So in the first layer, we have training image and the inference image out of the box, and pretty much we need to tweak the hyperparameters to achieve the best trained model based on the metrics we wanted to maximize, for example. Then we create the artifacts that should be published into an S3, and that's going to be our trained model to be consumed by uh, a variety of different client applications. When it comes to building framework, it is slightly different because I need to I still use the training image and the inference image provided out of the box within the ECR, but we need to provide the training code. And also remember there are, as we spoke about last week, there is times where you need to work with bringing your own algorithm, right? So, and then in that case, you're gonna be customizing the whole thing. Docker file, code and libraries, the training code, the training image, uh, for both the training and the deployment process until you can get to a reasonable model to be published into production. So these are the things that you've got to have in mind when you're considering your pipeline, right? So have training, deployment, you have different artifacts, different aspects that you need to think about, right? And this is important to take into consideration when you are determining what should be your golden pipeline. On top of that, remember there are occasions where you need to retrain your model, right? So, for example, you can use step functions workflow for the regular pipeline, like processing data, training model, evaluate model, package model, and create the endpoint. But sometimes you're gonna have to retrain in a regular basis. So let's say you need to retrain for a new marketing campaign and have a trained model that should be trained because new customer data is gonna be should be added to your data set. And then you need to do that in a regular basis. Or eventually, uh, a new process, a new data transformation or data preparation process uh, using AWS Glue. It's providing new data, or you are injecting more data with Kinesis, for example, and then you need to trigger a retraining workflow to make sure you have the best optimized model, right? And also on top of that, remember we spoke about earlier this week on the SageMaker monitor model. So sometimes you gotta be able to detect the data drift and then to trigger a retraining a retrain workflow that is gonna go through all the steps required to ensure you have the latest and the best model for your customers to be consuming. So these are the things that you gotta keep in mind. And why I'm saying that, because I wanted to drill down with you into all of these aspects during our lab today. We are gonna pick up a XGBoost uh, algorithm, and we are going to be implementing an end-to-end pipeline to cover all these things. But you guys gonna notice that we're gonna be implementing strategies for blue-green deployment in case there are the need to retrain our model. Uh, we're gonna be mimicking the data drift in our model that's gonna be kicking in a new pipeline to retrain our model, and then you're gonna notice the difference in how to use each of them. In addition to that, it's also important to understand that we are not limited to the AWS stack, right? Of course, you guys are we're gonna have more dedicated session, but uh, we can integrate and we can leverage other platforms like Kubeflow or Apache Airflow for to work as the orchestrator for our machine learning pipeline. And we have integration out of the box. And one of the homeworks that I gave you today is to go through the process to use Kubeflow and set up a Kubeflow pipeline to automate the machine learning, the MLOps process. So this is just so you know. So building the CI/CD pipeline. So what are the common questions, right? So you need to think about, of course, the source and version control. What would be your quality gates? So which metrics you're going to be using to determine uh, if you should be moving forward with that model that you just trained, or eventually need to uh, find a new metric to improve your the trained model performance. Also, you got to think about ways to implement multi-step release process, uh, how to make sure uh, everything is in place. So the overall goal in applying this machine learning practice uh, to learning workloads is to basically enable customers to accelerate the adoption and optimize the operational aspects of building, deploy, and operating machine learning workloads. So I just wanted to provide with a few things we gotta be considering when you are uh, designing your machine learning pipeline. So of course there are the golden standard. There is a few benchmarks and a few assets that you can use as your baseline. But you gotta be thinking about the what could be a good fit for your customer. Sometimes you need to uh, kind of tweak to adjust to your customer needs, right? So regarding the CI/CD pipeline, so the first thing is to identify the source code. But remember, there are few occasions where we typically see customers beginning to incorporate this into machine learning projects into the overall strategy to drive some of the business outcomes. So uh, you gotta the first thing to understand is the maturity level of your customer. Sometimes they are kind of just getting started with that. So and eventually they have manual steps, which is okay. So the things that you gotta be thinking about is to how to educate your customer and how to build a model that provide business value and the ability to collaborate and share those assets. So this is the things that you need to focus in this first stage. But of course, our intention is to take our customer to the next level. And these are kind of the things you gotta be considering when you wanted to take your customer to the next level, right? So you need to think to determine the source code and how to turn this into something automated by creating things like with CloudFormation or Terraform. You can use pipeline as a code as well. We are going to be explaining the some of the options we have out there, like the SageMaker pipelines or using step functions, or eventually a third-party tool. So sometimes we wanted to use Jenkins, and we have this, by the way, out of the box, included within AWS SageMaker Studio, right? So we're gonna be speaking about. Just wanted to provide, uh, uh, explain the things we can do right now and the options you guys have out there to improve your machine learning ops implementation. Sometimes we find customers that are increasing the number of machine learning models, and they have the need to automate things, and they are gonna start reducing the number of manual steps. And these are kind of the things you should be considering: how to identify the source code, version inputs, version artifacts. What would be your quality gates to determine uh, if you should be moving forward or not, and the deployment strategy. So I'll be doing batch processing. I should have multi-model endpoints. I'll be implementing a blue-green deployment or a canary deployment. And how you're supposed to detect, to monitor the quality of our model, to determine and to identify things like data drifts, and to provide dashboards and visualization all across the board. So these are the kind of the things that you should be thinking about. But don't be concerned, because you don't need to start from scratch. Even though you can do that, we provide out of the box many accelerators to so that you can hit the ground running and just do a few tweaks uh, for your particular customer implementation and your customer need. Also, on top of that, remember, I just told you that we have the model building. Sometimes we need to automate the retraining workflows, and you're gonna learn more during the SageMaker pipeline demo. But we have the concept of the model registry, right? Where you can think about it as a central repository where we control versioning models, so where you have the option to do model lineage, and also approve models to move from stage or development environment into production until they can finally be deployed. So these are the things that you need to be considering. And this is one example, right? A multi-account example that use the machine learning ops framework reference architecture. This is a library that is available out there, uh, which consists of cloud formation stacks, service catalog for implementing the products that you just created, like the studio and many other things. You of course have everything implemented with code build, ECR, S3, and also you have the opportunity to customize this and to plug in some external third-party tools. So let's say you wanted to use Jenkins and replace for example, uh, code pipeline with that. You have the alternative to do that. Not with the machine learning ops framework, because this is something that is created out of the box as a blueprint that you can use for you to kick off a new CI/CD pipeline for SageMaker. But you have the ability to customize that if needed. So we are going to be creating something similar to that today, right? And we are going to be using service catalog to publish uh, a new process, a new pipeline with code build, and we are going to be using step functions as the orchestrator and be publishing that into a single account environment. But that could be expanded into a multi-account very easily. Well, and last but not least, we are going to be talking about more during the labs. But as I told you, we can take advantage of the AWS SDK to incorporate the SageMaker pipelines and to your favorite CI/CD tooling, or in case you are not leveraging the SageMaker pipeline, you can of course uh, use a different orchestrator. You can use Kubeflow, you can use step functions. The answer that relies on the customer needs and the things you wanted to implement. Of course, there will be a session, a deep dive on this. But one of the advantages is that SageMaker pipeline has the integration all across these steps on the machine learning workflow. So when you're talking about data preparation, uh, data training, data process, model deploy, all the things are well integrated. And whereas when we're talking about the step functions, even though we can do something uh, really well integrated, this is not part of the machine learning process within the studio. So the advantage is that you can work directly within the studio to implement that, as opposed to do something uh, implement a orchestrated outside. But we are going to be diving deep more on this during the Sage Maker pipeline session. So that's what I have so far. And here are a few examples where you can learn more. And hopefully, you guys have enjoyed the session. And see you in the next one. Bye.